So good morning. I want to talk about BMW, of course, but mainly about the communication and the communication of our history. And to do that, I think I have to take you on a little journey through our history, because most people actually don't know what BMW really is. Because if I ask you what is BMW, you say it's a car. And you're right, it's a car. But our history is long, and if I take you on a journey, I have to start, of course, in 1916, and it's all on this chart. 1916, we actually started out with aircraft engines, and we're really famous for that. And we were founded actually by two guys, an engineer coming from Mercedes because he wasn't happy there, didn't earn enough money, so he said, I can do better. I found my own company, another guy in Munich, and they got together, said, we will build good aircraft engines. And that's what they did in 1916 already, and I think most people forgot about that nowadays. And only a couple of years later, we started building motorcycles. And already then, we tried to be innovative. We built totally new frames. It was lightweight construction. The boxer engine was new. So the spirit that we have already still nowadays, that innovative spirit, that was already there at that point of time. And then cars, it's only 1929, so a couple of years later. And 1929, I don't think there's anybody from Mercedes here, but as far as I know, 1929, Mercedes already had a history department. They already took care of the history because it was a long time already. And that's when we just started with those tiny cars that we built at that time. So, as you can see, our history is long, but totally diverse, and we didn't really start off with what we are known for today. That was a couple of years later, but we already also had dark times, and that's part of our communication as well, is of course the role we played during the Second World War, and we actively work with that as well. And after the Second World War, that's what we did. We built pots and appliances for home use, and that's how we restarted the company in the end 40s. And only in the 50s, that's when we started the motorcycle and car thing again. And I think then slowly we created the picture that you have in your minds today. If you think about BMW, you see the 507, an iconic car, like Elvis Presley owned one, all that stuff. And then I think, at least for people of my age, the 2002, the orange car, and the M1, those are icons. Everybody relates BMW to that nowadays. That's when, I think that's when our, I would say, modern history starts. The history that we have in mind now, sporty cars, you know, cars that are dynamic, nice to drive, look good. And to be honest, that's the main part of our communication nowadays, is really revolves around the time from the 1960s on. And we also see a big movement in the interest of people to younger cars. So the 70s are cool, but already quite far away. 80s are cooler. 90s now are really interesting for people, because the so-called young timers, as we have them, as we call them in Germany, so younger cars are more and more interesting for the buyers as well. And then something happened in 1994 that was really interesting for us, or important for us. That's for the first time where we gathered everything together in one building, and that's where our communication really starts for our history. Before that, it was scattered. Of course, we opened the museum in 1973, but a real strategic approach to our history and how we deal with it, that was only in 1994. And since then, we had a building, everything was put together, the archive, the collection, everything. And I skip one step, go one step further. In 2016, then we reopened a new building. I will come to that a little later. And that's the new home of our brand, or BMW Group Classic. One thing, and we discussed that last night and also today, one thing most people don't know, the car industry nowadays is an industry of a lot of big companies owning a lot of brands. And also BMW is not BMW only anymore. That's what I said, it's not only BMW cars, it's the motorcycles. Most people know that, but we also own Mini and Rolls-Royce since 2000. We also owned other brands, but we sold them again. Now they belong to other groups, but we stuck to Mini and we stuck to Rolls-Royce. So we have a complete setup of our lineup of products, from small products to the most luxurious brand in the world. And of course, when we acquired those companies, now it was our task to talk about the history as well. Not that easy. Because for BMW, of course, we have everything. We have the archive, we have almost everything you want to have for the history of the company, corporate history, we have everything, all the decisions that have been made over the years, we know it all. Mini, not so much, a little bit, because we only bought the brands. We didn't buy the archive or anything. We didn't buy the historic cars. We had to work on our collection. On Rolls-Royce, we only have the name rights. So no archive, nothing. So we have to work together with the Enthusiasts Club, with the two big clubs in the UK. That is a very interesting and big task there. So just to give you a quick overview, and I think that's the difference between the previous presentations and mine. I won't go very much into the history of the company. I just want to give you a glimpse on who we are, and I would like to focus a little more on how we work and where we are right now. I said before that in 2016 we reopened as we call it, the BMW Group Classic. The BMW Group Classic is basically a location. It is the first production site that BMW ever had. So 1918, to be exact, we opened up that factory. We sold it to another company, and 2014 we bought it back and reopened it in 2016 under our name. So it's the first hall we owned, and now we own it again, and there is everything. And I will show you what everything means. That's what it looks like. We have the Classic now, we have the museum, so those are two locations, of course, with everything that comes with exhibitions and the archive and so on and so forth. You can see it on the chart, what we have to offer there, and I would like to go a little more into detail because BMW Group Classic is actually a company on its own within the company of BMW. So we have the location itself. The location itself we rent out, we host events and everything. We have a workshop. It's a business case actually, so people bring their cars, we repair, we restore them. Also our cars in our collection, we repair them there and restore them to what we need them for, if we want to drive them, if we want to showcase them. That's all done in the new workshops. And that's actually the only new building we're building there. The other stuff was restored, and that's a new building just for the workshop. The collection, of course, only a small part, roughly 50, 60 cars in that little hall. And that hall is the old production site. On the left side, in the corner, you see old pictures from the 1920s. That's what it looked like at that time, and it's still the same site. It has been restored, and we showcase only 50 cars. All in all, we have roughly 1,400 cars and motorcycles in our collection. We have, of course, the archive. The archive is now has also moved to that location, and the archive is open to the public. So I think most of you have the same system. If people want to do research, they come to us, they can go there, they can collect their stuff and work in our library and do their research, and it happens quite a lot. I think every day a couple of people are there. And those of you who have been to the to the event this year. We hosted the, what was it called, Anders? VDW. The VDW. Yeah, Verein Deutsche Wirtschaftsarchivare. Thank you. So basically, all the people working in the archives in Germany and also from other countries, they came and visited us and had, of course, a look also in how we work there a little bit closer. So we're open. So people come to us and do their research, and that's only like now the part that is not my responsibility. So a workshop, collection, we sell like 60, we have online parts that you can buy with us for all your old BMW, I think 64,000 parts you can buy. All of that is BMW Group Classic. So it's a big business case of selling, I didn't put it on there, we also sell cars, of course. You can sell your old BMW with us. And now the next part is communication. And communication has to work with what we have to offer. So of course, the people from the archive, they work with us and they come to us and say, okay, next year, that and that jubilee or anniversary, whatever we have, you know, let's talk about that. How can we activate that? Then the guys from the services or for the workshop say, okay, we have a cool engine that we restore. Can we do a story around that? Or there's a special car. What can we do about that? And all of that comes from within us, from within BMW Group Classic. We generate those stories. And I don't know, Anders, what you said before, whether storytelling was good or bad. I didn't get that because it was in Swedish. You like it. That's good because we like it too. So those are that's the foundation of our stories. That's what we can generate from our archive, from our collection, what we know about ourselves, of course. That's one part. But then the question is now, how do we do that? How can we activate those stories? And we chose a very special setup to do that. Basically, it's all in one hand. So in my department, we have all the content, as I just said before, from within the company. We have all the channels. So channels is a different definition, but a difficult definition. But I just say we have marketing, PR, social media, so online, offline, everything within one department. A few people take care of that. And we have the competence, of course, people who know what they're talking about and what they're doing. And we have, beside the communications, we have all the platforms as well. So we host events like the Villa d'Este, who, if you know about that, it's the most luxurious car show in the world where historic cars are being shown at the Lago di Como in Italy. So people from all over the world bring their $1 million cars there, showcase them there, and we are host and co-partner of that event. So, which means the platforms are also in one hand. So in the end, if we talk about communication, we can choose what we want to do. We can choose the platform, we can choose the channel, and I think that's a big advantage. And I don't know any other department within BMW who has that same setup. And that's what I meant before when I said we're a small company within the company, because we have everything. And I can tell you, in a big company as BMW with 125,000 employees, decision-making processes are not that easy. They're long. And they're strenuous. But if you work in a smaller company, like we do, you can do the things on your own. You can decide, you can be fast, and you can just do things. And I like it. It's great. Just a quick glimpse on our channels. I think we're in a perfect position because people love our stories. They love our products. Everybody has a story to tell about, you know, I know a guy who had a BMW at one point when I was a child. I saw it at the you know, at the work or wherever parking spot in the supermarket, they saw a car perhaps that they liked, and they all have a story to tell about an uncle or father who ever had a BMW, first car they drove in. I don't know what the stories are, but they are there, and they don't speak to the brain, they speak to the heart. And I think that's the big advantage that we have with an emotional product. And that's why I think a lot of people also like to follow us on our channels, and that's why also 650,000 people come to visit the museum every year and pay an entrance fee that we live with, of course, and come to visit us and come to learn about BMW. Together with the BMW Welt, I think they have 3.5 million visitors per year. It's one spot basically in Munich beside the BMW headquarters. We're the biggest tourist attraction in Bavaria, in front of the before the Neuschwanstein, if you know that. So, if we have the setup now, like how we work, how we organize, and we have the stories that we have, so two very important things that come from within the company. Now is the question, how do we activate it even more? How can we reach a community? How can we actually talk to the people who like to know about us in a way that is, let me say, in a way that is more credible and trustworthy, and that is not that much marketing. Of course, we have to do marketing, but the problem at the moment for the car industry, of course, is, you know, we're not that credible anymore. It's not our fault, but I think that in general the trust towards the car industry has been going down a little bit, and we have to find a way to speak different to our customers. And our colleagues who do the general marketing communication, of course, they have a bigger task for the new cars, and we are on the other side with the historic communication, especially the older cars. We speak to the heart, as I said before, and that's what makes it easier for us. And that's why I think Seth Godin put it in nice words. We have to work with emotions and not that much with the brain. So if I tell people a boring story all the time, they don't care anymore. I mean, social media, there's so many stories outside. If we only do the same thing that everybody else does, it wouldn't work over the time. And that's why I would like to present two different examples of how we do things at BMW. One is how we activate the stories that we have that come from within the company. That's for example, 40 years of M1 happened this year. And the other one is also the title of the presentation, Our Brands, Our Stories. I come to that in a second. So if we have something like 40 years of M1, the archive comes to us and said, hey guys, we have something next year, let's talk about that. I said, okay, we'll have to see. And we do then a big plan for the whole year, how we can activate a thing like that. So in the end, there will be, that's the outcome basically, but that's usually then put in a timeline, you know, when do we're posting there, how we deal on the different car shows with that. And if you look at that, we, for example, did go to the BMW Museum, put a special exhibition on. Around the corner, actually, there's also Andy Warhol. I don't think you can see it in this picture, but I was reminded of that when Anna talked about Andy Warhol before. I don't know what she talked about, but there was Andy Warhol in the presentation. I saw that. And we also had a car done by Andy Warhol in the 70s. So, you know, we thought about what do we have in our portfolio. So we have the museum. Of course, we do an M1 exhibition there. What else do we have? We have the show in Essen, and of course, it's the biggest old-timer show or classic car show in Germany. Of course, we do play the 40 years there as well. and showcase what we have this year. By the way, italienisches Kleid, bayerisches Herz, German, it means it's an Italian dress with a Bavarian heart. I really like that. Because the design was done by an Italian designer at that time. Then we did a little film for social media. There's no sound for that? And very good for the team. They just won an award with that in a festival. It was really cool. You know, you didn't expect that to happen, but for us, it's a big reward to know that things we do actually work out there. Of course, we do just marketing. So we put an ad in newspapers or in classic magazines and just tell the world about the 40 years of M1. And we had a new trailer. Of course, the M1 had to go on the trailer. So, to make the long story short, if we have something to tell, like 4 years of M1, we look at the whole year and we do whatever we can, all the channels we have and all the platforms we have, and put it everywhere. On the right side, totally different approach. That was more like a strategic approach. Because we said our stories are not enough. So all the things we have to tell are not enough. We want to activate the community, and that's what I said before. You know, how do we reach the community? And we said, let's do it in small steps. First, let's think about the strategy that we can follow, and that was to find stories out there that we can then activate. First step was, and there was the guy who was on the picture before, that's a BMW employee, that's one of the guys in my team. He owns a Mini, so we talked about his story and he told his story. And we had an intern who actually drove a 30-year-old 7 Series. I mean, an intern driving a 7 Series is a story itself, so we talked about that as well. And then put it through all the channels as well. And we saw that it worked really well. Next step was, step 3, roll out the whole thing to the fans. So last year, for example, we asked our fans in the community to send us pictures, and we then published a real print calendar, you know, for 2018, and are selling that. And pictures are not from us; they're from out there all over the world. And then, for this year, we said, okay, we need something else, a step on top of that. And that's the final step, basically. That's where we are right now. We found 5 people. On the right side, it's Klaus. Klaus is working actually with us. Klaus is the former head of our workshop. As I showed you the workshop before. Klaus is a big enthusiast, of course, of BMW. So what did I think 30 years ago, he found an old 328, a car from the 40s, one of the most valuable cars we have nowadays. At that point of time, not so much. Still expensive, but not so much. Now it's like a million and a half euros. And at that point of time, I don't know what he paid for, he doesn't tell me, but he found it, was more a barn find, and he restored it to perfection himself. And we do a clip about that. Then Dimitri, the second guy from the right, he's a Greek guy. He was almost born in a classic Mini because his parents owned one, and his parents had the car from his grandfather. So the car is now in the third generation, and he will keep it forever, he said, and that's what he talks about. Then we have Buchi-san. Buchi-san is from Japan, is a former Olympic athlete, and now a very successful businessman, a very nice guy, and he owns the world's largest collection of M cars. So we do a clip about that. So he has his own story about BMW. And Bea, she is a motor journalist from Spain. She likes to drive very fast motorcycles. And especially now, you know, those coffee races, what they call, the custom-made little bikes. And she talks about how she came to that with her father and how she likes to drive and repair and build. So she has her story to tell. So what we did is we found people with a special story about BMW and we let them tell their story. We don't tell the story. And Jason, he's American. He has a story as well, also with sound, I guess, and he will still tell you his story.
The E30 has been with me since I was a kid. It was the first car I was ever sideways in the back seat, and the first time I heard that engine screaming, I thought, I gotta have one of those. I bought this car when I was in my mid-20s, and I'm not in my mid-20s anymore. But I couldn't have owned a car that looked like this in my 20s, because the first thing I did when I got this car after maxing it out on the Autobahn was drive it up in the mountains, through the snow, sideways everywhere, drifted it all over town, took it on the racetrack, beat this poor thing mercilessly for years. And then I hit a fork in the road. Well, actually, I hit a deer. And suddenly I had to make a decision. Do I cobble this car back together, or do I take the opportunity to really make it perfect? And for that, I'm really appreciative that the BMW Group Classic Center exists, because I could do it. All of the parts that I needed were available. What was just an old used car 15, 16 years ago is now something that's really collectible, and I want it to look perfect always, and I take it to car shows, and it's won trophies, and I'm very proud of that. But that's not why I own an E30. I own an E30 to drive it. This was the quintessential driver's car of my childhood, and it is so good to drive. I would never, ever put this car in any danger, and I would never drive it hard. That would be irresponsible. But if I did, I would make sure that I cleaned it when I was done, and then it's okay. My name is Jason, and my life revolves around cars.
Yeah, Jason. I love the guy. His story is great, and this was actually a preview. We haven't published the videos yet. Will come in a few weeks, one after the other. So their stories, our stories, basically the thing that is behind our brands, our stories. We want to make their story our story, and then we send it out to the community. And it multiplies. We get reaction. We get other stories back. Can work with that again. So the approach seems to be, or proves to be, very, very successful. Of course, those are not out yet, but as I said, with the interns, that already has worked out really well. So their stories, our story, I think, is the right way to go for us. We can directly interact with the community, and that is a key success factor for us. To sum it all up, we have the brands, the 4 brands that we have. We have the organizational setup, our big advantage. We have the competence, we have the channels, and we have the content, and we reach the community. So I think all in all, that's our approach for the moment. Of course, it will evolve over the years, but that's where we go, what we go for right now. And one last thing, I mentioned it before very briefly. I think in times where the car industry is right now you know, autonomous driving, electromobility, connectivity, services. Nobody wants to own a car anymore, perhaps, nobody knows, but all of that is very uncertain. So the car industry is at a turning point, a lot of people say. So who can give them stability, can give the customer a stability where he knows where his heart is and what brand he can trust and what brand he likes? I think that's us, that's the history of the company. That's the core of the brand and where we come from and what we stand for. And that is why we do our stories and send them out into the world. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for Ralph? We have one immediately there. I think we have a microphone coming back there.
Your organization, does it include a classical marketing and advertising department as well?
Yes, it does, yeah. So marketing, PR, social media, all the channels, it's all within that organization, yeah.
Thank you. My name is Torbjörn Eriksson. I'm head of PR at the Royal Opera in Stockholm. You just mentioned quickly, it was kind of on the time lapse, 30s, and then was next one was 46. But I'm very interested how you handle the dark side of your great company. I know that when Wiener Philharmoniker got the Birgit Nilsson Prize, they put in all the sum for research on what's happening from Anschluss 38 and so on. Mm. And I think also you had comment or whatever happened.
Yeah, I'm not the big specialist on that. That would be my colleague from the archive, but I know that we had several works on that done. So we had people do research our role in that time, because in the factory in Munich, especially that's where we're talking about, we had guys working there from the concentration camp in Dachau around it. So still nowadays we work together with the foundation in Dachau. So we always sit with them when they do something. We are there, we talk with them. So one part is the effects we have today. So Dachau still, of course, they have a trust, the foundation, so we work with them. And for the history at the time, yes, we had somebody research and publish that. And we also, if we do any kind of publication, like a book for our company's history, we always have that also as a chapter. We put a light on that and we don't hide it. In the museum, there's a part that deals with that role we had at that time. Yes.
Yes, and it's not separate. It's
part of our history. Yeah.
Part of the history.
Yes.
Yeah. Great. But it's rather new, this research, or?
No, we supported somebody doing that. We wanted to be it independent and not from us, of course.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Ralph, one last question for me, because I know where you're heading after this, but can't you tell everybody, because you have to leave early and catch a flight to the UK, what are you going to?
Well, I'm going to my favorite event. If anybody knows it, it's called the Goodwood Revival Festival. We are a partner there with the Duke of Richmond, he's called. Duke of Richmond is doing a big event every year. He has, of course, a big land, and he has a racetrack and a little airport in the middle, and that was very much operative in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, and so now he does an event every year where historic cars from that era go and do races. There are airplanes also, there's a big market, but everything is from that time, so you have to be disguised. Of course, I have a tweed suit and everything, and on Saturday evening there's even a party where you have the motto and you have to be disguised. But everybody walking around there looks like from the 20s to the 40s, and it's just amazing, all the pictures you get there, the cars, the people, even the shops. I told yesterday that Tesco is another sponsor. They have a supermarket, and every little thing they sell is in a different packaging from that time. It's so cool.
I'm going next year. Ralph, thank you so much.
Thank you.